Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Mountains We Climb. This is a series where we dive into people's journeys of overcoming challenges and adversity in their lives so that we can understand what is really possible and what it really takes. I'm your host, Jordan Kilpatrick-Smith, and in this week's episode, we'll be welcoming back Benny Clark, who is in episode 10, where we discussed his schizoaffective disorder and how he manages it with kayaking. Today, we'll be discussing Benny Clark's recent growth and discovery around boundaries, triggers, and mental health. Benny, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me back, man.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
I'm pretty stoked to be back with you. Have another good chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not 7 a.m.
Yeah. So could you start off by introducing yourself?
Yeah, my name is Benny Clark. I'm a whitewater kayaker and avid outdoors and mental health advocate. Travel around and tell my story and talk about pretty much what I've gone through in my life and that kind of thing. And I was happy to be in the episode with you in episode 10, chatting about my life of like learning how to deal with schizoaffective disorder or extreme bipolar or whatever, on those things. So, yeah.
Fantastic. So what is the recent development that's been going on for you? What's been going on lately?
The biggest development I think that I've had over the past little while is I actually just suffered a knee injury 3 weeks ago. I've been thinking lots over the past couple of weeks of how since I did that last podcast with you, how my life has changed because I seem to be a lot more content every day. I started going back through time and figuring out what was going on. And one of the biggest things is I've cut toxic behavior and toxic people out of my life and created more boundaries. I created boundaries a long time ago, but it's mainly been the toxicity in my life, whether it was my behavior or another person's behavior. I've tried to figure those out and exit them out of my life. So it's been pretty good. So
yeah, and what are the changes that has made for you? So before we dive into the management of things, what did that do for you when you started to cut toxicity out?
At first it hurt.
Yeah.
Cause it was like, for one example, it was one with my ex-girlfriend who I was quite in love with, and we were not good together. We were getting stoned together. We were fighting all the time. We were, and it was back and forth. It wasn't just her. It wasn't just me. It was both of us. And taking her out of my life 100%, so there's no contact, was really very, very hard, because I found out that sometimes in our lives we can't have people that we love in them, whether it's family or the woman or man that you love or whichever. And it was really very hard because I spent 2 years trying to do that and it never worked. But then all of a sudden this summer when I got back from Ecuador, I was like, I need to change this, because it was destroying me. It was destroying her. And these behaviors are hard on everybody. So
yeah. And so for the people who are listening to this, what was toxicity? We'll wrap back around in specific example here, but what was toxicity in general doing to your mental state? Why was this an issue for you?
I was falling apart. My medication slowly stopped working. Well, it wasn't even that it stopped working. Like I'd sometimes forget it and sometimes not concentrate. I'd be sleeping in. I wasn't getting on the river. I was relapsing. All these sort of things. And my mental health was not where it was like 3 or 4 years ago when I first started to try and figure myself out. At the beginning of this year, March, before I talked to you, and like we talked a little bit, I was falling apart for a couple months coming back from Ecuador. And no matter what it was, it all led to a couple of things in my life that were the toxicity. And I don't like really using that word for a person, because the person, it's calling somebody toxic can be toxic in itself. So I want to be very careful now, because it's not just the other person. It might sometimes is the other person that's toxic, but a lot of the times it's both parties, it's your behavior and their behavior, or it's just your behavior that's causing the toxicity.
Yeah. So
very careful in accusing somebody of being toxic, because realistically, it could have been me more, it could have been me less. All I know is these things are cut out and I'm doing better. So obviously it wasn't good for me. And I hope that other people that I disconnect with in my life are doing better as well.
Yeah. So we'll be very conscious with the language, because that's a really good point. toxic behaviors of people, right?
Perfect.
And so I just want to just clarify something for someone who's listening who isn't quite following so far. So schizoaffective disorder or extreme bipolar, however you want to look at it, you have manic episodes, you have depressive episodes, right? A manic episode, how about, you are the one who knows much more about this than I do. So could you just briefly explain what manic is, what depressive is?
Absolutely. Depressed is exactly the word. It's exactly that. No matter if you see something, no matter if things are going good in your life, you are still in this depth of having this lead weight on your shoulders that just won't leave. And you don't know what it is. You don't know. And as you get older, it gets heavier and heavier and heavier. With the manic states, most manic is bad. It's anger. It's, really extreme hyperactivity, or going out gambling too much, or spending too much money, or addiction, doing drugs or whatever. My manic states actually happen a lot when everything is going way too good in my life. So for an example, like a couple years ago, Neil Troughton, a good friend of mine, he had sponsored me for kayaking, and he was getting me boats and stuff. And a month, not even a week later, or two weeks later, I was on my deathbed from suicide attempt. Everything was going really good, but then I crashed. So depending on the person, most of the manic states go directly into negative. Mine seem to come when it's like really, really positive.
Right. And so is it fair for me to say they're like extremes in the behavior range?
Yeah.
Okay. And so the reason we're talking about what we're talking about today is that you've managed to find important factors in staying out of those extremes. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. So I write in a journal, like we were talking about before. Yeah. I've written in a journal for a long time, pretty much daily on like if I'm down, I'm writing down, the things, the events of that day, like that kind of thing. And I can go back through my journals and find my triggers in my journals and like read my journal. Oh, okay, well, this caused me this to go to this state this day. The next day, though, there's that thing again. The next day, and then wow, okay, this one thing has caused me this every day for the past week and a half, and I'm dying from I'm almost extreme manic now. So I need to take those out of my life. Those are the triggers that are putting me into that depression or into that manic state. So I've figured out, I guess I've figured out, it doesn't work all the time. Like it's still I still have medication that I take, I still use those things because sometimes I do miss it. But I don't think I've been manic I've almost been manic, but I've caught it in time now with these ways of catching my triggers. And I've not gone extreme manic. So I haven't been suicidal in I think over 2 months now, over 2.5 months. And I haven't been I do go a little bit more depressed, but I can handle my depression. I'm okay with that. I'd rather stay in those because the triggers are way easier to handle than my manic triggers. So right. I try to stay closer to the ones that are easier to manage. They're always there no matter what. But some of them, you can get rid of them. That's what I wanted to talk to you about today, was getting rid of some of those triggers, which are toxic behavior on you or other people, setting boundaries for yourself and for other people, and not having any given those boundaries. If somebody crosses it, it needs to be stopped right then and there. The triggers and the toxic. The toxic is what saved me a lot this past couple of months. So
yeah. So the first step to any of this is self-observation, right? To understand what's actually going on, what you use the journal for. Okay. And then, so the floor is yours. Where do you start with this?
Well, I started I think me and my Dr. Perkins, when I first started talking to her, she had said to start writing a diary, like every psychiatrist or psychologist will tell you. And then what I realized was that I had actually already done it for 10 or 8 years or 9 years already, because I'd write a journal every day on my kayaking, and I was boating all the time. So every time I boated, I was always writing a journal. So now I just up to that to writing in it every single day, which now I almost boat every single day. Right. It works really well, but I still, that going back, being able to open those pages up and read them. You can either even tell by your writing that day, if it's scribbly mess or blah, 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 or if it's nice printing, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You can tell just by the pages itself. Some of my pages are written upside down, You know, and I found those going, oh wow, that was not a good day. You know, that wasn't a funny day. It wasn't a good day. So that's where I started with that stuff, and that's been pretty much the I guess the Bible to find what toxic behaviors are in my life and stuff like that. And like I said, unfortunately, me and this girl I had to walk away from her because we had toxic behaviors together. We had toxic behaviors apart, and we had them together, and they were like putting gasoline on a fire when we got together. They were almost the exact same toxic behaviors. Actually, pretty much they were the same. We treated each other the same. We talked to each other the same, and we did drugs the same, blah, blah, you know, everything. Mm-hmm. So finding those triggers, those didn't show up in my diaries until I actually went to Ecuador when I was away from her for 5 months. And then I could actually look past what was being convinced of me, right? You know, about her presence wasn't there and stuff like that. And that's where I started with that, which worked out, started like the toxic behaviors I actually haven't cut out. I only cut the one out in March when I got back, but excuse me, I'm now cutting out all toxic behaviors, you know, like whether it's the way people treat me or the way I talk to people. I try to understand that it's not just other people. It is me too as well. And we are 100% liable for our behaviors. I'm not for yours, but I am for mine. So if I allow you to stay in my life and you're treating me like that, then I am liable for your behavior because I'm allowing it to stay in my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So that's important.
That's where those behaviors need to be exited out of your life. So unfortunately, like I said, sometimes loved ones, sometimes it's family members, sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's enemies. It's, you know, it's all these things that we need to understand. Our lives are this way no matter what. They are way worse when we have all these things in them, and they're way better when we don't have these things in them. So why not just connect the dots and like, work on that, you know, start slow. And it is hard to exit the toxic behavior. If you're not willing to admit that you have toxic behaviors, you're not going to exit any toxic behavior. It doesn't matter. You're always going to be around it because your behaviors are there. Your toxicity's there, you know, so. How
did you approach that? How did you look at yourself and be like, oh, I got to start here with me and understand that I'm responsible for my behaviors?
I actually don't really know how I started doing that. I've always been hard on myself. And one day, a little while ago, I decided not to be hard on myself, that I needed to stop beating myself up. And then all of a sudden, those toxic behaviors were showing up in my mind after I don't know, you know, you get what I mean? Like, it's kind of weird to explain, but I started like, okay, this is me. This is who I am. People don't want me around. Okay, that's fine. That's cool. But why don't people want me around? Oh, okay, it's that. Because I'm an angry fucker. I'm an asshole, or I'm lippy. I'm that kind of thing. I'm beating other people up with my mouth, with, you know. And then I started like, okay, this is actually things that I'm doing too as well, you know. And I've always kind of known those things about me. Like, there comes a time where you just gotta, you know, suck it up and admit that, you are an asshole sometimes. We're human beings. You know, we're all, every single one of us. It doesn't matter to me how good of a person you tell me you are, or how good you have been. Everybody has toxic behavior. And it's just a matter of how we, you know, delete it from our life to be, not just functionable for ourselves, but functionable in a world that already has a stigma attached to who we are, you know, with mental illness and stuff like that. So
So am I correct in saying that you replaced your judgments towards yourself with curiosity?
Actually. That's actually a really good way to put it, because it's when I was like, when I was like hard on myself, well, you suck at this, or you're an asshole, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, why am I an asshole? It's perfect. Actually, really, why am I being like that? Why am I treating this person like this? Or why am I treating myself like this? You know, why, you know, I can actually sit down in a room now and sit back and let everybody else talk and barely say anything, which is a fucking far outcry from what I used to be. Like, I've never, ever let anybody speak. You know, now I just like, I can, you know, have a conversation that's actually legitimate and understand that other people have different opinions and people are different in a different way, not just my way or no way kind of thing. However, that's where boundaries comes in, because if that person is crossing a boundary that you can't have in your life, it doesn't matter how good that person is. If they're not willing to not cross that boundary, you unfortunately have to exit. Whether it's an amazing person or a shitty person, it doesn't matter. If they're doing something, like say you suffer anxiety and loud voices, loud obnoxious voices that you know, trigger it and make you like overwhelmed and stuff. If I'm not willing to learn how to tone my voice down, then you need to tell me to either I can't have you around because it triggers me, or we need to figure out how you can like talk a little better around me. And, you know, not like, don't attack the person. Don't tell, you know, you're too fucking loud, I don't like you. It's not that. It's just like, listen, man, I suffer anxiety from my father that beat me. You know, I just yelled and screamed when I was a kid. Loud voices trigger me. So I'm asking if, you know, I like having you in my life. Yeah. Can we please try and figure out how you can kind of tone your voice down while we're on, so we're not triggering my anxiety? And if I can't not accept that, then that's toxic behavior for you in your life. So I can't be, right?
Yeah. So it's showing up, honestly telling the person what's going on and collaborating with them to find a way that works, and saying, look, very clearly, here's my boundary and I want to make this work with you. And like you said, in doing that, you're taking 100% responsibility for yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's not anybody's fault that we're like this. Like, we could be from where you're raised or what you have as an illness. It could be how fucking normal you are. And you're just not used to understanding that there's people like me or people like others or like you or that are different that suffer from anxiety or, you know, like I go to a grocery store and I'll ask my buddy if he's with me, I'll ask him to go to the fruit section for me and get me apples or bananas or nothing, because that's where, like we talked about in the last episode, is where I suffered one of my triggers. I had flashbacks of my suicide in the fruit section. So I don't even go near that. And my buddy will go grab it for me. You know, that's that's like, he knows that's my boundary. I can't go over there, and he's willing to help me with that. That's like a line I can't cross, and he doesn't want to see me go through that. And if people aren't willing to work with you, then in my mind, they're not worth having in your life.
Yeah. And so what are some important boundaries in your life that you've set?
Anything that so like for me, I suck at relationships. I really like, and I don't mean friend, like I'm a really good friend of it, but like I'm one of the best friends to have out there, but I'm not good at intimate relationships. I'm not good at, like, whether it's because of what I've suffered in the past, it doesn't matter. I'm just not good at them. So I've put a boundary on myself to actually have connectivity with somebody before I just hook up with them, you know, nice. That kind of thing. Like, let them know and understand that I don't like being touched all the time. I don't like, you know, certain things, and so we can work on it. I just need you to know. And if they're not willing to work on that, then that's pretty much a boundary right there, or like a line that they're not willing to cross. So I'm not willing to go into it with them. Other ones are like, if I raise my voice or yell or anything, and it's in a relationship, I need to find out right away as it is why it's caused me to do that, and I will walk away from any relationship that has not caused me to do that, but the both have caused us to do that. If there's any yelling or any screaming or anything like that, I can't have that in my life anymore, because I do it back. And I do it back very, very scary and very loud. Like, I've been abused, and I've also done the abusing, and that, knowing that my line is if somebody's just going to poke and somebody's just going to poke and they just want to poke at me, that boundary's being crossed. That is like, you can't be in my life. If you want to get drunk and be loud, obnoxious, and pick a fight with me and ask for forgiveness tomorrow, cool, you got one chance with that. I'm going to tell you tomorrow, when you say sorry, you fucking do that again, we're done. I cannot. I grew up addicted to violence. I cannot have that in my life. And if it happens again, which this is an example that actually happened in Ecuador, the second time it happened, I walked away from a friend of 14 years. Wow. And I haven't spoken to him since. I haven't, because he is at a point right now, like I'll always be there for him. If he reaches out and starts chatting, I'll be there. But until that day that he understands the same thing that the 5 people that were there telling him that he did, until he understands that, I can't have him in my life, because violence is not good in my life. And it shouldn't be in anybody's life. But this is one person that I can't help. That's like my boundary for mental health, like for people chatting with me, anything like that. You start blaming me for things that I had nothing to do with. You start being angry for me because I wasn't there yesterday because I was out in the bush, anything like that. I will walk away 100%. And I do that for myself. And it's not selfish. It's self-help. It's not selfish. Like Facebook is the perfect example. I shut down my messenger. I shut down Facebook because I went out in the bush for like 6 days, kayaking, no cell phone service. I came back. I had 2 people accusing me of not being there for them when they reached out. Didn't even know these people. Like, no names or anything, but they were accusing me, telling me, you weren't there. You say to reach out. You preached reach out, blah, 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 and all this stuff. It's your fault that I just spent 4 days in the hospital because I overdosed. And that's that. So right then and there, I know it's not my fault, but I start getting hard on myself. And I start beating myself down. That toxicity is bringing toxic behavior back from me. The things that I've tried to take out for the past couple months or a year or 2 years is now returning because they're having toxic behavior towards me. So I exited. I got rid of that. I deleted my Facebook account, deleted League of Beautiful Minds off of Facebook. I have just Instagram now because it's very easy to manage one. So that's one of those things that, So
that last boundary is people taking responsibility for their own stuff, right? Not pushing it onto you as if it's your problem.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And can you tell me a little bit about what it was like for you to dissociate from that friend of 14 years and more details about that?
Yeah, I was in tears for like probably a fucking week, man. I was devastated. He was one of the guys that kept me in kayaking. He was one of my he was one of the I call him the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse of kayaking, because they convinced Benny Clark to fucking stay kayaking. And I thought I was going to learn kayaking when I showed up, because I came from a different life. And he was one of the guys that stood at the fire and stood up for me when I wasn't around. When people are bashing me, going, that guy's crazy, he's fucking doing this, doing that. He would like literally say, well, take him boating. And they'd say no. And he'd say, well, shut the fuck up then. If you're not going to take him boating, it's none of your business what he's doing. He's kayaking. You guys don't want to teach him, then don't. But just don't sit here and talk. So we had an awesome relationship until I worked for him in Ecuador, and it was really hard, and I still miss him to this day. Like I unfortunately though, I can't be in that level of hurt, for something that I didn't do. The biggest thing for me is it went into the point where he tried to use my illness against me, and tell me the next day that what I was talking to him about and telling him how I felt about it, he was saying that never happened. That's not what happened. We had 4 other people that were sober that were sitting there. One of them was very good friends, and one of the persons that I got from Hardcore Paddles who sponsored me, and they were like, no, Benny, you did not do anything wrong, man. And it took a week and a half, 2 weeks and still to this day, I still think that I might have done something, but those 4 people will tell you they were there the whole 3 hours, and they're like, no, you weren't. You managed it so well, and that I'm proud of. But because I've walked away out of his life, I don't even get to be proud of myself now for doing that, exiting that trigger, because I'm too concentrating on the hurt that has been caused leaving that person, right?
Yeah. So there's an incredible amount of bravery that you showed and courage to stand up for yourself and for your boundaries and said, look, I made a promise to myself, right? This is my boundary, and nothing is worth breaking that. No,
absolutely. There's nothing. Now that I have them and they are there in my life, they are 100%. They are clear. They are not. There's no blurry sides of it. There's no, for me, it's hard to stand by, especially when it's somebody that you love or somebody you care about or somebody you've had in your life for so long. But it has to be done.
Yeah, and so
it's not for your benefit. It's also for that other person's benefit too, because whatever behavior is happening, if it's bringing old behaviors back out of you, you're putting toxicity towards that other person too. So subconsciously, you guys are causing each other all these problems that don't need to be caused. And if you're not willing to understand that they're there, then they need to be broken up. But if the people are willing to work on them, then hey, you can stay together. That boundary's not been crossed, because it's like, hey, this is what we are. Let's try to figure this out. We want to stay friends. We want to stay lovers. We want to stay family. Let's try to figure this out. But let's keep these boundaries.
Yeah. I love that. I love that, man. Because you're so right. You know, if you allow that boundary to be crossed, and you're fueling their issue as well, right?
Absolutely.
And so as much as we view it as selfish in order for us to maintain our boundaries, there's actually a very, very large selfless component to it, right? Because you're protecting that person and all of the people that you will be able to help, and because the person that you're going to become when you set these healthy boundaries for yourself, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's like,
yep, go ahead.
We were talking about like where I started with all this and stuff. I think the boundaries one, I think I learned from a girl when I first got separated. I went on the Grand Canyon with this amazing woman. She was a really good friend for over a year, but I was falling in love with her, and she didn't want that. And she had to make a decision because I was crossing boundaries of the friendship, and she had to make a decision that I'm destroying Benny by staying around, so I need to leave. And she literally cut all ties with me because she knew she didn't want to be in a relationship with me. She just wanted to be friends, but she knew I wanted more, and it was killing me. It was like I was slowly dying. So she made this decision, which is probably hard as hell because we were like awesome friends, and she had to walk away. You know, so it's not just the things that we're causing. You could notice it for somebody else. If they're causing it to themselves, you might have to make the decision that, okay, this isn't harming me, but this is obviously harming that person. And we need, so you need to recognize all sides of it. That's the hardest part.
And for you on the receiving end of that, what was that like? What's that like for you now to look? Yeah, I guess at the time and now later down the road.
At the time, it fucking sucked, bro. It was like, there's no other way to explain it. It fucking sucked.
Did you understand why she did it?
At the time, no, I didn't. A year and a half, 2 years later, I fully understood. And then another year later, she's like the one example that's always in my brain, trying to help me learn my boundaries and what my boundaries are for other people, what you're not allowed to cross with me, and yada yada yada. She's like kind of the foundation that what she did is kind of the foundation for my push to do that same thing for myself. So in a way, she actually helped me a lot, and it's, I wish her nothing but the best, even if, she's probably doing amazing because she was a pretty rad woman. But yeah, it sucked, dude. It really sucked. Especially when you're just gone through going through a savage divorce and stuff, and you have this amazing friend that's there every day, and all of a sudden she's gone or he's gone. Boom.
Yeah.
Just like, oh.
Are you thankful that she did that?
Absolutely. I am 100% thankful because it was destroying me.
Yeah.
And I can see it now. Like I started having behaviors. I started, having these toxic behaviors that we're talking about that started going towards, not healthy stuff. So
can you give examples?
Yeah. I'd go and get stoned and I'd use her as an excuse. I'd cry wolf. They're not cry wolf, but like go and use my disparity to my buddies, and we'd get super stoned and drunk and use it as an excuse. Like, oh yeah, we're getting fucked up because, we're hurting, blah, blah, blah. That's toxic to yourself. That's not, you can't just do that because you're hurt. You got to do other things. You got to figure stuff out, so, yeah, but yeah, it definitely, it can be, you can either allow it to help you or allow it to define you.
I just want to throw in, I love this conversation. This is a good
conversation. This is, I'm pretty stoked because I'm actually listening to myself. Cause like I said to you, I will not listen to this again, probably. I haven't watched the first one. So I'm digging this conversation. I think this is a great topic. And I think especially now with COVID and everything, because we're all far apart, but we're all really stuck together. like families are tight together and friends are farther away. And I have friends all over North America. I have friends in Ecuador, in South America. I have friends in Europe, Australia. And these are friends that I usually see every year. And I'm probably not going to see them for 5, 6, 7 years. And they're all really good people that are suffering in different ways. A very good friend from Ecuador who just got to England is pretty much on her own, working, that kind of thing. And guaranteed she's got some toxic behaviors that she's, beating herself down. But we're at a stage, she's at a stage where she's struggling so bad because there's nobody really around, because of this fucking COVID. So I feel so much pain for other people right now that are like going through these things and suffering because they are alone, but they're not alone. Like you can have a conversation like this. I got my psychiatrist appointment tomorrow. It's exactly like we're doing right now on Zoom. My fucking 1 hour psychiatrist appointment is on the camera, and that, okay, cool. It's my psychiatrist, but my psychologist or, it's not the same. Yeah. It's not like you don't feel present. You don't feel like there's somebody sitting beside you understanding. I know you're sitting there and you're nodding your head. Yeah, I know, I get this. I love this conversation, but it's still, if you were sitting beside me, I'd be fucking giving you a high five going, yeah, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah. There's something about the energy of being within the presence of another person that, and, tying this right back into mental health in what you're talking about, I think it's so important that we understand that, right?
Yeah.
We are social animals, and it's part of us to be around other people, and we need that. And that's okay.
It is activity. It's total connectivity, and these living it like even with masks on, man. Like I get why we gotta wear masks. I fully under. It sucks though, man. Like I look at everybody's eye, but I can't tell if you're smiling or if you're having a rough day. Like if I go shopping or whatever, and somebody's walking around with their head down, everybody walks around with their head down right now because they got a mask on and they don't want to connect or anything, and they're just boom, boom, boom. But then all of a sudden, like you can't tell if they're upset or in a good mood. Like you can't tell anything. Yeah, the eyes tell everything, but when there's no facial expressions behind them or those little glitches that we all go through, it's hard to. I hate it, man. I'm a fucking social butterfly now. Like I used to have so much anxiety with people, and now I love going to hang out with my buddies. I love going out to kayak festivals, and I love all that shit.
What changed?
Fucking COVID.
So
what changed me from? I think being comfortable with myself and who I am.
Can you say more about that?
Yeah, that's again, like it's the acceptance. I think acceptance is moving forward, is what I've always said to myself, and I try to say to other people that I'm chatting with about mental health, and I think accepting it allows you to look at yourself and figure out who you actually are, what you want and what you want from other people, and then boom, all of a sudden you have boundaries.
Yeah, and this is right? this is perfect. Because I was going to ask you, one of the things that I see often is that we fail to set boundaries because we don't value ourselves. Like really, this is what it boils down to, right? And you just went right into that. It's the acceptance, right? The acceptance of self.
Yeah, and the acceptance of self, and even and everything is in that. Whether it's your mental illness or your body type, your facial, no matter what it is, it's once you figure out that, once you get that comfort within, which is I think the accepting, I think you can be accepting of everything around you that's you.
Yeah.
Like it's, and I know other people, a lot of people go through different ones, like with physical, the side of that, they have to fight because they're either fight overweight or, they fight and you're kind of handicaps or whatever. People go through that physical side. Most of us go through it mentally because, but there's a lot of people that go through it physically and mentally. And that is I can't even, I've always been happy with me or my body. I've always been, I'm short, which I'm okay with, but I've always been okay with that. I've never had to fight obesity or anything like that. So I can't even comprehend of what that person's, because I know what I go through mentally on myself, you know, to fight not being comfortable with your body and not being comfortable with your brain. I think is I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. Like that would be a very, very hard. And you probably deal with that a lot, being a trainer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I really think that once we can accept who we are, or not even accept who we are, but accept ourselves, and because we're always going to change. Change is like the only consistent thing in life.
Paradoxical, right?
It's like the only thing, you know, like we're gonna suffer from something with our bodies. We're gonna suffer from something with our minds. And, you know, some of us suffer our whole life with our minds. Some of us suffer our whole life with physical. Some of us suffer with both all our lives. But being comfortable with you brings everything else in. It brings your boundaries in. And by setting all those boundaries and being like, when you're comfortable with yourself, you set those boundaries, you get to stay comfortable with yourself because you are standing up for yourself. You're saying, no, I don't accept that. I'm not accepting that you're going to treat me like that. I'm not accepting that you're going to talk to me that way or call me those names or anything. And I'm going to walk away. I did it on my dime, on my time. And it was my decision. So me still has the confidence within me of that. So
yeah, friggin' awesome, man. So how do you develop the acceptance or the comfort with yourself?
That is a very hard question.
It is. I guess think, maybe like, what was your story? How did you go about it?
The way I started accepting, like after my last divorce, I was pretty beaten down, pretty shattered. I had zero self-confidence. I could barely be hugged by another person, let alone another woman. And I started going that toxic way, the bad way, but I still had good people in my life. And I think those good people in my life started that initiative of me being comfortable and accepting. I think that's where it started. And then once I started listening to those people, that's when I started saying, okay, hey, wait a minute. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am a fucking good person. Maybe I do deserve better. Maybe I am this. Maybe I am that, you know, blah, 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 and go on and on and on. And once I started thinking about that, I started noticing more people helping with that. Not purposely, but just by comments. Oh yeah, you're doing really well, man. Or like with my kayaking, I'd get a match, fuck, you're killing it, right? You're doing, 39 years old, 40 years old, fucking you're crushing it. Go keep doing it. Those things. I started like, oh wow, this is actually, okay, I'm actually doing something that is worth it, and for me with the mental health side, like people come up to me all over the place, and I have some followers that just out of nowhere say hi to me, and I hate saying it, like I'm upset with myself because I don't know them, and they follow me on Instagram and they introduce themselves and stuff and they thank me, and it's just like those things build and build and build and help me a lot with that. And I think a lot of the talking about it was the main thing, like being comfortable with my illness as a wellness. And I say that very, very carefully, because it's not a wellness, but it is for me with kayaking, with being on the river. My illness is a wellness on the river. It helps me so much on the river, helps me be calm and all that sort of things. But I think talking about all of those, like my mental illness and my traumas with other people and people listening to that, has helped me be comfortable and accept that, yes, I have this, but actually people are going to be accepted. There's good people out there. There's still good people. There's fucking bad people out there. You're always going to run into everything. It's just a matter of how you take those experiences in. And if you let them help you pave the path, I guess, then it's I think it's really, it's really comes down to that, which is not just that, but like I said, it's the talking about it is the main one, I think.
Yeah.
Being confident with my traumas, that it wasn't my fault. It's not my fault that I have this mental illness. It is my fault on how I manage it. It is my fault on if I let it define me. It is my fault on if I'm being toxic to other people. We can't choose how we feel, but we can choose how it defines our life.
Yeah.
Bam. Right there.
Fucking awesome, man. So talking about it, accepting help from others.
Sorry.
Got Charlie visiting.
Charlie staying high.
Talking about it, right? And then accepting help from others as well. And and then following it up with action that's in line with accepting and valuing yourself, right?
Yeah. Putting it into action is probably the harder part. You know, you can stand in front of the mirror and say this, say that, say this, but the second you walk away, it can change, right? And one person can take it all away from you in a matter of an instant. So you have to be able to take out the negative and get rid of it and hear the positive. Because we always concentrate on the negatives, right? We never concentrate on the positives. You know, if somebody's telling you you're beautiful every day, we get used to it. We're not listening to that. Somebody's telling you that there's another person next to that person saying you're fucking ugly, you're ugly, you're ugly. That person that's saying we're beautiful, we're not even hearing that.
Yeah.
You know, we need to be able to take that negative and just brush it away and listen to the positive, and then put that stuff into action. You know, and it's not even just the help from others. It's just the having good people around you. Toxic behaviors again, right? Not having those toxic behaviors around you, so that negative is very easily pushed away. If you have the toxic behaviors, then you're just making it a circle. You're just running like a cat with no eyebrow. You know, it goes fucking boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
You know. So
when you say good people, right? Surround yourself with good people. And you mentioned they're good people as in people that aren't doing toxic behaviors.
No, I don't mean that, because like I said, everybody has toxic behaviors.
Yeah.
People that are also willing to change, to understand that they have toxic behaviors, that they have like good people that, so if me and you are sitting there and you have a toxic behavior, we've been buddies for a couple of years, and I just say, you know, screw you, I'm out of here. That's not really, you're still a good dude, right? There's nothing, it's just like that behavior that's causing me problems. So that's where that honesty comes in with your friends, with your family, the people around you saying, hey, this is causing me problems. I'm struggling with it. Can you help me out? It's not you doing it. It's just kind of one of the things that is happening between us. It could be me causing you to be a dick, you know, but I'm just not noticing myself causing you to do that.
Right.
Right. So if you're not, that's what I mean by good people, people that are willing to sit down and say, hey, yeah, okay, cool. Well, if you see, this is why I'm kind of doing that. And then you're all of a sudden you're like, oh, so I'm doing this too. Fuck. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's fix it. That's what I mean by good people. I don't, you know, people are people. There's a lot of, that's just what I mean. People that are willing to accept that we're humans and we're all assholes sometimes.
Yeah. And willing to do something about it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's an important distinction, right? It's not like you're finding these perfect human beings that don't really exist, that do everything perfectly.
Yeah. If you find one of those, send one over my way.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know, it's people that are willing to listen and are willing to not just listen to respond, but listen to understand. Listen and willing to make a change and make things work, right?
Absolutely. And if you can't, then it doesn't have to be an angry walk away.
Right.
You know, it doesn't have to be, if you can't come to that agreement where that toxic behavior or those behaviors aren't helping you, and if you can't figure it out between that person or those people, then maybe it's time to take a break, or come back later on, revisit it, just take some time off away, go experience some other things and meet some new people, or, that kind of thing. But it's not going to be because you guys both because you all talked about it, or these behaviors were talking. You're not walking away like, screw you, fuck off, you suck, blah, blah, blah. There's not all this hate back and forth. It's like, no, actually, you know what? Maybe we do need a break. So let's take a break and we can come back and revisit it. People aren't in your life forever. It's not, people are there for a certain amount of time and then they're for a reason. They're there to teach you. No matter if it's bad or good, or they're there to teach you. And some people are there for a long time. But in that long time, those people are sometimes gone a year, 2 years sometimes, because everybody has their own lives,
Yeah.
But
yeah. What are some other boundaries that you had to set?
They come with, I actually, so like if there's a new friendship or new people in my life, and people are a certain way, I can set new boundaries for myself, because I haven't come across all things that need boundaries.
Of course.
Yet, right?
Yep.
So I haven't fully had to do it in relationships, because I haven't been in a relationship in over a year, you know, that kind of thing. So I haven't had to do with that, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of looking forward to if it does happen, because if I do meet somebody that's comfortable doing that, then it's gonna be, you know, a fun ride, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. But I don't know. I haven't had to set too many. The violence is like the 100% one, and like I'm okay with being around drugs, you know. And I'm the last guy that's gonna lie to you. I've had two relapses or 3 relapses since we talked with cocaine,
Right.
but not very much. It was like 3 lines, but it's still, no, maybe more, maybe a little. It might have been a gram, but it doesn't. I still relapse. But I'm not gonna condone people because they're like, if I go to a house and there's a bunch of drugs out, I'm not gonna do that. I am most likely gonna turn around and leave.
Yep.
Because that is what has caused my 3 relapses last time, showing up, and you know, it's been there. So that will be I shouldn't say that will be a boundary now. If I walk into a house party or whatever and people are doing cocaine, I'm gonna probably turn around and walk away, say much love you guys, but I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Right.
No, but I'm just gonna set it like, you're gonna let me know if that's gonna happen. You know, I need to know, you know, because I need to know if I can come in there with strength or if I'm coming in there weak and I'm going to end up doing something. I think I'm not going to lie. I will always relapse. I think that's one of the hardest things of my life, is because I'm not addicted to any one drug or anything like that. I'm addicted to shutting my head off. So I have had to take people out of my life that know other people, that kind of thing. So, you know, on this conversation that we're having now, I'm going to be sitting down with a buddy when I go see him on Thursday, and we're going to actually have this conversation. I can't have that stuff in my life. I don't want, and he's a really good dude, but he will, you know, he can get it for me. Now, right. If I come in weak, you know, and that's happened once already. So I am going to be going and sitting with him and say, hey, no more. Don't do it. And I think he already knows. So I think he's going to be like, yeah, no problem, dude. I want you in my life. I'm not going to fucking get you none of that shit. I'm pretty sure, you know, I'm almost positive that because he's a good person, like he knows that sometimes shit can't happen, you know, that kind of thing. So there will be always times in my life where I have to either pick myself, because I have had people pick the drug over me, you know. Yeah. My ex-girlfriend picked the drug over me. I've picked people over the drug, or I've picked drugs over people before too. You know, most of us have done that, but that have been drug, you know, addicts and stuff like that. You know, that's the way it goes, whether it's booze or coke or heroin or meth or whatever. So, but that's also I guess, yeah, on that topic of what boundaries I've had to make that one, and I've had to make the anger and violence, the yelling, you know, if you can't handle your booze, I'm not fucking hanging out with you.
Yeah.
If you're gonna drink a half a bottle of rum and you're going to turn into an asshole, I'm sorry, man. It's going to happen once, that's done. You know, I can't have that in my life. You know, if you can be a happy drunk, okay, cool, man, go for it. Be happy as pig and shit, I don't care. But if you're going to turn around and start yelling and screaming at me and, you know, and I understand people are hurting. That's why they do it. I get that, but that's one thing that I cannot help with is when there's anger, when you're at that stage of grief of anger, I can't help. Right. Like I literally can't help people, because that anger usually comes out in lashing towards other people, and I can't handle that. Because I can't stop myself from yelling and screaming back, or if you hit me, I'm definitely gonna hit you, you know, kind of shit. And I don't want that in my life. I do not want it. So that's like the biggest one. And I'm a firm believer in just because you're suffering doesn't mean you get to be an asshole.
For sure.
That's, you know,
comes back to the responsibility, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. The structure of who you are will definitely be defined if you do not take responsibility.
Yeah.
If you do not accept that you are doing these things and accept that, yeah, you are a problem right now. And it might not be a problem to other people, but you're a problem to yourself, or you are a problem to other people. If you don't accept that, it's just like recovery from drugs. It's just like addiction recovery. It's the same thing. Acceptance, you know. And until you can accept that there's something wrong, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. So I'm not going to do that.
Right. Yeah.
So really, that's literally what's going to happen. You're going to keep blaming other people. Yeah, and all these things that I've had happen to me over the past little while, I've taken certain things out of my life, like drugs and that side of life, and now I'm not suffering through that same stuff I was suffering through last year before I went to Ecuador. So my mental health is a lot easier to manage. It's still not easy to manage, but it's a lot easier to manage. And then that's where we're at. It's the drop kick time, the drum roll time, the drop kick time. I'm in a pretty good spot. I don't think I've been in this good a mental state as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty stoked to where I've come and how hard I've worked to get here.
Yeah. So, well, Benny, I really want to acknowledge you right now for the incredibly hard work that you've put in and the results that you're getting as a result of all of this hard work, right? To stand up for yourself, to own your value, to accept the things that are going on, to take responsibility for your life. Kudos.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate this conversation. This is a great conversation.
Yeah.
And anybody else listening, we're all in this together, man.
Yeah.
We absolutely are. We're all in this together. We're all there. And yeah, if anybody out there wants to follow me on the League of Beautiful Minds on Instagram and pop me a message and say hi, I've got no problems with that.
Yeah.
Anybody can reach out and say hi, and I can chat with them or whatever.
And I'll post that in the link of the description. So wherever you're listening to this, check out the description if you want to. And I hugely encourage you to check out Benny on Instagram, the League of Beautiful Minds. Benny, you got some crazy ass videos on there.
You watch some of them, eh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty good, man. I quite enjoy the kayaking. There's been a lot of people help me out with getting where I'm at. Andy and Mike Nash of Hardcore Paddles and Simon Coward of Aquabatics and many others out there. They all have been. I kayak like I do today because all of them have helped me so much. So much love to all of them and all my friends out there that I don't have enough time. I've got so many people in my life now that help me that like I need another hour to name them off.
Right.
It's built such a good community of people all over North America, South America, and I love y'all. Thanks everybody for all the help, because even just a like on a picture saves a life. So even a good comment on somebody's picture, or saying hi, sending a message saying, "Hey, what's up?" You can save a person's life just by doing that.
Yeah. So my question to our listeners now is, what boundaries do you need to set in your life? Who in your life, including yourself, is proving to be toxic and needs to have a conversation with or be removed? And is there anyone that you are being toxic to that you might need to acknowledge right now? So if you found this podcast beneficial, please subscribe and share this episode with someone who you know so that they can benefit from it too, because we all experience mental health, good and bad, and this is hugely useful for everyone.
Sweet.
Was there any last thing that you wanted to add in there?
Just the one person I was talking about that's suffering in Europe right now, I want to say I love you, Abby. We'll talk to you soon, and keep fighting. You're beautiful and amazing.
Fantastic.
And everybody else out there, keep fighting. You're all worth it.
Yeah, I love that. See you next week.